Good afternoon. Today we will continue with the revocation hearings 8180 and 8181, initially heard by the board on September 15, 2015. As a reminder, testimony is being recorded. When you come forward, please state your name and address and be sworn in. As you testify, please direct your comments to the board and not to those in the audience. The members of the audience are asked to remain silent and not coach the witnesses. During your testimony, members of the board may have questions for you. Following the hearings today, the board will proceed with its regular agenda. Following the conclusion of the agenda, the board will deliberate and vote on the hearings. The board will notify the conditional use holders of its decision by mail. Hearing number 8180. The purpose of this hearing is to determine whether the conditional use permit number 120283 issued to Broadway Meat Market LLC, CO Rami Al-Mutin, to occupy 8306 North Broadway as a grocery store with cooking and packaged liquor, subject to certain conditions, should be revoked. A brief summary of what happened in the last review of this hearing. The conditions at issue at September 15th hearing were numbers 5, 6, and 7 of the permit. The board heard testimony from the zoning inspector that she still found violations of condition number 5 upon her inspection that day, but that the permit holder was in compliance with conditions 6 and 7. Condition number 5 currently reads as follows. 5. There shall be no sale of items that can be used as drug paraphernalia, including food scales, blunt cigars, glass roses with glass tubes, disposable lighters with pop-off tops, steel scrubbing pads and screens, rolling papers, ephedrine or pseudoephedrine, diet supplements, sleep aids, bath salts, or other substitutes for illegal drugs. In addition, the board heard testimony that the permit holder had filed an application to amend the permit to extend the hours of operation and to receive clarification on the term blunt cigar in condition number 5. During deliberations, the board voted to table the hearing due to the pending application to amend the permit and revisit the hearing after at least 30 days. After the hearing, the zoning department contacted the board's counsel to explain their policy of holding amendment applications while a revocation matter is pending. Since zoning will not amend the permit while this revocation is pending, and this board has the authority to amend the permit, if so inclined, the board may consider amending condition number 5 during deliberations today. The board's counsel has worked with the zoning to revise the standard condition regarding drug paraphernalia. We can discuss the proposed conditions further in deliberations, but I will read to you the current draft as it now stands. There shall be no sale of items that can be used or intended for the use as drug paraphernalia as defined in Ordinance 68404 or its successor ordinances, including, but not limited to, food scales, glass tubes, disposable lighters with pop-off tops, steel scrubbing pads and screens, rolling papers, ephedrine or pseudoephedrine, diet supplements, sleep aids, bath salts, or other substitutes for illegal drugs. In addition, there shall be no sale of cigars or cigarillos commonly used or adapted for the use involving controlled substances, examples of which include but are not limited to the following: Phillies, Dutch Masters, White Owl, Swisher Sweets, Splitterillos, Backwoods, Optimo, Garcia and Vega, and Game. The board has in its possession a letter sent to the permit holder from the board secretary giving notice of today's hearing, which is being introduced into evidence. At this time, we'll hear from zoning as to the inspection of the property today. Then, after all evidence of zoning administrator has been presented, the board will ask for any additional testimony in support of the revocation. Then the conditional use permit holder will be given the opportunity to testify. Lastly, the board will hear any other testimony in opposition to the revocation. The board asks that the representatives of the Office of the Zoning Administrator please come forward and be sworn in.
Right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. My name is Myra Turner. I'm zoning inspector for the City of St. Louis, 1200 Market Street, room 400.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, board.
Can you tell us what you found, please?
As of today, on the inspection, all violations had been brought into compliance.
Okay. Does the board have any questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else present who wishes to testify in support of the revocation? If so, please come forward and be sworn in. Seeing none, the board asks the conditional use permit holder to please come forward and be sworn in.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do, thank you.
State your name for the board.
Jay Kanzler. I'm an attorney, 2001 South Big Bend, St. Louis, Missouri, 63117. I represent the conditional use permit holder and the manager of the store is here as well if there are any questions from the board. My only concern is in terms of the definition of blunt cigars, and I know why the city and I've spoken with Miss Allen, who's been very helpful on this, and what the city is attempting to do with this definition of blunt cigar. I do believe that it goes too far. I believe that my grandfather would be turning over in his grave if he said he couldn't get his White Owls, at the convenience store. The other things, such as scales and rose, the glass things, all of those are meant to smoke crack cocaine. They're meant, I get that. I also understand that there are certain makes of these blunt cigars that are made obviously for the purpose of dumping out the tobacco and putting the marijuana in them. And they say right on the package, when you call them splitterillos, or they say they come pre-split, okay? Well, the only reason, why would somebody that was going to smoke the cigar want their cigar pre-split so that you could dump out the tobacco? However, there are certain Swisher Sweets, there are certain White Owls, there are certain other cigars that are just cigars. Sometimes it's just a cigar, and they're not meant for that. The truth of the matter is, and as I've told Miss Allen, if you really want to smoke pot, you can use a Twinkie or an apple. I mean, it's all in the creativity. And so, again, the conditional use permit holder will abide by what this board says. That's the important thing for him. On the other hand, I think that this is a bigger issue that probably is going to continue to be brought up down the road if you are saying no cigars. You cannot distinguish between taking a cigarette and saying we can go ahead and allow the sale of cigarettes, even though you could easily twist out the tobacco, put the marijuana in, twist the ends, and now you are smoking pot in a cigarette. It's hard to distinguish that from a cigar, which you would do the same thing. And so as you are going through your deliberations, I would recommend or suggest to you that, again, that be modified slightly to those cigar brands that are specifically meant, pre-split, whatever it is, to get rid of the tobacco and fill them with marijuana, as opposed to those that, quite frankly, could be used as simply a cigar. Other than that, they're in compliance, and I would request that this board not revoke the conditional use permit, adopt whatever clarification you deem appropriate, and he will comply with it.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions? Thank you for your input. Okay. Is there anyone else present opposing the revocation that wishes to testify? If so, please come forward and be sworn in. Seeing none, the matter concerning hearing number 8180 is now closed and submitted. The board will now move on to hearing number 8181. Hearing number 8181. The purpose of this hearing is to determine whether the conditional use permit issued to Dynasty Discount Inc., CO Faoud Khalil, to occupy 6321 West Florissant as a convenience store, no liquor with cooking, subject to certain conditions, should be revoked. A brief summary of what happened last time. The conditions in question at September 15th hearing were as follows. Condition 4, there shall be no sale of items that can be used as drug paraphernalia, including food scales, blunt cigars, example White Owl, Tandem Black, Swisher Sweets, etc., glass tubes, disposable lighters with pop-off tops, steel scrubbing pads and screens, rolling papers, ephedrine or pseudoephedrine, diet supplements, sleep aids, bath salts, or other substitutes for illegal drugs. Condition 5, there shall be no loitering, for which the applicant must post a no loitering sign and enforce it. 6, the applicant must apply for and receive a permit from the City of St. Louis Building Division before posting signage, and the signage must be approved by the Office's zoning administrator before being installed. In addition, the board heard testimony from the zoning inspector that she found violations of condition numbers 4, 5, and 6 upon her inspection that day. At the hearing, the board heard testimony that a new owner had taken over the property. After the hearing, it was ordered by the board that the hearing be tabled to allow the new owner of the property time to apply for a permit and revisit the hearing after 30 days. The board has in its possession a letter sent to the permit holder and new owner from the board secretary giving notice of today's hearing, for which is being introduced into evidence. At this time, the board asks a representative of the Office of Zoning Administrator, please come forward and be sworn in.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. My name is Myra Turner. I'm zoning inspector for the City of St. Louis, 1200 Market Street, room 400.
Can you please tell us what you found?
Okay, as of today, they're in violation of number 4, and the violation is actually the roll papers, the tip tops and easy widers. Number 5, there shall be no loitering. They have not, as of yet, posted the no loitering signs, and there are no applications pending for any signs at this time, which is number 6.
Okay. And so my question would be is, have they applied themselves for the conditional use permit in their name as well?
I don't have anything that's changed right now.
Okay, so where we are is the conditional use permit that we currently have is not in the name of the existing owner.
It's still a confusion on the ownership,
Okay,
Mr. President.
So it hasn't been rectified yet? Okay. Any other questions from the board? Thank you. Is there anyone else present who wishes to testify? Oh, excuse me. The board asks the conditional use permit holder to please come forward and be sworn in.
Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you state your name for the board, please?
Sure.
What's your name?
My name is Fuad Khalil. I'm here for Dynasty Discount and More, 6321 West Florissant.
Okay. So we met on September the 15th, and the issue at hand at that time is that the business that you were operating had a conditional use that was not in your name, and it had violations of 3 conditions which were called out before, 4, 5, and 6. And so the board tabled the conditional use, and the direction is that you were to, first of all, go apply for the conditional use to be changed over into your name, and then secondly, to clarify and correct the violations that have been noted. So can you respond to what you've done since the last time we met?
Since last time, we just, we just sold the whole business for the guy. He was here with me the last time, and they tried to get the occupancy permit to continue the process. But since then, I mean, we agree, me and him, he gonna take care of those points. And honestly, I haven't been there because it's not my business anymore. I mean, we get paid, and he's under his name, and he promised he will take everything. I don't know what he did, but what I know, he gonna take the cigarillo, all kind of those stuff. But I don't know if she found something today. That's I don't know. Which is when I talked to him last week, he said, yeah, we took it off, and we're gonna put the sign, which is he have to put it. But honestly, I didn't check on it. I didn't see me. I was there since, so.
So I'm still confused. So can we go through this one thing at a time? Have you done anything since the last hearing?
We just agree, me and the new owner, which is we sold the business for him, and he gonna take the paraphernalia things. He gonna take them away. He gonna take them out of the shelf, and he doesn't put any sign in the window or anything, and he gonna put the lowering sign in the window.
Well, you currently aren't the owner.
I'm not the owner now. I mean,
Sure.
I just talked to him, which is he was with me the last time, and he promised he will do all this stuff. So I haven't been there since.
Okay.
Where are we with the process of the paperwork of the ownership? Has that been signed? Is it, where does that stand at this point?
We signed and we sold the business, and he tried to get the occupancy permit from the city, and now he got a problem with the electricity the last time I heard from him. And I guess they almost finished the issues, so.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anyone who wishes to testify in support of the revocation? If so, please come forward.
Mr. President, if I may, do I need to get sworn in?
Be sworn in. Thank you.
Would you give me your right hand, please? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name for the board.
Bob Gordy, zoning plan examiner for the city of St. Louis. We do have a pending occupancy permit application for this property. It's in the name of the West Florissant Market, in care of Hussein Suhaib Ishmael. We have not done anything with this for two reasons. One, if the board decides to revoke the existing conditional use permit, then we would have nothing to transfer to the new applicant, and the new applicant would have to have his own conditional use hearing, which has not been held yet. If the board decides not to revoke the current occupancy permit, then we would work with the new applicant to see about transferring the conditions of the previous conditional use permit if he could abide by all those conditions. So we still do have a pending application for occupancy here in the name different from Mr. Khalil. And I don't know if this Hussein Suhaib Ishmael is the same fellow that was here with him last week or not, or last meeting, but that's whose name is on the current occupancy permit application.
So if the board would revoke the conditional use permit, the new owner would be able to apply for a new conditional use, though, correct?
Correctly, we would set him up for a new hearing when he paid the fees.
And that could clarify quite a bit of, who's responsible for what. Would you agree with that?
Exactly.
Okay. Does the board have any questions?
Yeah, I would need clarification. Did you say the individual, the new individual, for lack of a better way of saying it, you're uncertain if that's a different individual? The gentleman that just spoke, I know, is not the individual
Right.
you're referring to, but you're not certain if the new individual is the other person that was here prior with that gentleman?
I couldn't say for sure, no.
Okay, because I don't have a recollection of any certainty of that either.
Mr. Khalil could possibly come up and clarify who this new person he sold the business to is.
I think there was a young man that came in with the alderman, when we were here in the last meeting? Alderman Carter was here.
Correct.
Speaking, okay.
But I don't know
No,
who
if
that
it's-
individual with Alderman Carter is.
And that individual would have been the actual conditional use permit holder. And what we're in a situation is a new individual purchasing a business that does not have a conditional use, and we're in a transition phase, and we're finding issues with the existing conditional use, but this gentleman, it's not in his name, so it doesn't apply to him.
Sharice, is there by chance on this, do you have the sign-in sheet with you? Okay, good, we're on the same page.
Okay, all right.
He was the same individual, according to Mr. Khalil.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the board? Thank you. Is there anyone else present opposing the revocation that wishes to testify at this time? Please step forward. Okay. Seeing none, this matter concerning hearing number 8181 is now closed and submitted. The board will proceed with its regular agenda. Can you call the roll, please?
Director Scobie is excused. Director Rundy. Here. Director Hayes.
Here.
Director Roth.
Here.
Director Moore is excused. Director Gray.
Here.
And President Bradley.
Here we have a quorum. I'll call a meeting order.
From the President. Preliminary approval for letting number 8591, 2015 roof replacement for Terminal 1 East Extension, D Concourse Gates, D6 through D26, Lambert St. Louis International Airport. Addendum number 1 to the plans and specifications for letting number 8596, concrete and brick removal, replacement, and complete sidewalk installation, SP 98. Addendum number 1 for the plans and specifications for letting number 8597, concrete, brick removal, and replacement and complete sidewalk installation for SP 99. Addendum number 1 to the plans and specifications for letting number 8598, concrete and brick removal, replacement, and complete sidewalk installation, SP 100. Addendum number 2 for letting number 85 to the plans and specifications for letting number 8594, Municipal River Terminal, South Dock Warehouse Improvements. Supplemental Agreement number 11 to PSA number 1076, Design Services for Upgrades at America Center. Project number R200950-138. Forest Parkway over Metrolink Bridge Replacement Cooperation Agreement between BJC Healthcare, BJC, and the City of St. Louis. Board of Public Service recommends approval. Missouri Highway and Transportation Commission Municipal Agreement between the City of St. Louis, Missouri, and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for Route 30 maintenance recommends approval. From the Director of Public Utilities and Public Safety, joint recommendation that the following permits be approved subject to certain conditions as follows. Transformation Christian Church to consolidate land at 4106 through 08, 4110, and 4136 Evans, 1319 through 21, 1323 through 25, and 1327 through 31 North Sarah in City Block 3730. St. Louis Housing Authority to consolidate land at 4134 through 44 through 4228 through 34 Finney, and 4163 through 4193 CD Banks in City Block 4563. A15 Ann LLC to consolidate land at A15 Ann and 2117 through 31 South 7th in City Block 778 and 779. Land Reutilization Authority, LRA, to consolidate and re-subdivide land at 4232 Dr. Martin Luther King Drive in City Block 3728. Alitro, ILTREO, LLC, to subdivide land at 3400 Margaret Ford Road, a.k.a. 3405 through 45 Bent, in City Block 4126, 5135, 4135, and 4143. Rusco Properties LLC to consolidate land in 4308 through 22 and 4324 through 30 Dr. Martin Luther King in City Block 3727. The Ville Comfort Care House to consolidate land in 4249 and 4253 through 55 Kennelly in City Block 3674. Quick Trip Corporation for a boundary adjustment at 904 through 12 South Van der Vender and 3926 Pampin in City Block 3946. And Alliance Petroleum LLC to consolidate land at 4245 through 47 and 4251 through 59 Lindell in City Block 3913A. From the Director of Streets, recommendation that a 5-year lease option to lease agreement for Material Sales Company, Inc. to exercise their second 5-year option to extend the term of their lease agreement for additional 5-year period be approved. Soulard Restoration Group to encroach with decorative entryway signs for the neighborhood. The signs will be located at Russell near 13th, Sydney and 13th, 13 near Pestalozzi, and 13 near Arsenal will be on existing light poles. Signs on 7th and Carroll, Lafayette near 10th, Geyer near 12th, 906 Utah, and Broadway in Utah will be on separate poles. Recommends approval subject to certain conditions. From the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Forestry, recommendation that permit for Soulard Restoration Group to install an art sculpture known as Terra Madonna Pontiac in Pontiac Square Park in the west raised flower bed be approved subject to certain conditions. From the Director of Public Safety, recommendation that Christmas in St. Louis for a festival zone, November 21st, 2015, at Aloha Plaza, Chestnut, and Market from 20th Street to 18th Street. Festival of Lights and Salvation Army Tree of Lights be approved, subject to certain conditions. Now we have the conditional use.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, member of the board. My name is Dylan Mosier, zoning plan examiner for the City of St. Louis, representing the building commissioner. Per board order number 766, transmitted herewith are recommendations for the following conditional use agenda applications. Approval with conditions is recommended for 5 applications: 4267 Redbud, 4106 through 36 Evans, 4700 Margaretta, 5618 through 36 Hebert, and 4530 Hampton, with the added 5th condition that would read: the applicant must receive a Board of Public Service permit before operating. And with that, I'll take any comments or questions.
Any questions from the board on the conditional uses? Seeing none, I'll take a motion, please.
Move to accept the recommendations on conditional use permits.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Can you call the roll, please?
Director Scobie is excused. Director Rundy?
Aye.
Director Hayes?
Aye.
Director Roth?
Aye.
Director Moore is excused. Director Gray?
Aye.
And President Bradley.
Aye. Approved. I'd like to consider hearing number 8180, which is Broadway Meat Market LLC, conditional use number 120283. And in the situation, it appears pertaining to the zoning inspector that the conditions have been satisfied. And where we are is with a conversation about a change in the wording for condition number 5. And so I'd like to open the floor for discussion on that. So we basically had a situation where we had an unclear definition of blunt cigars. Our council has worked with the zoning inspection, the zoning section to try to clarify what that verbiage is. The attorney for the conditional use permit holder has expressed their concern about blunt cigars, about different types, about tobacco and rolling paper and so forth. So, it seems to me that we have satisfied all the conditions concerning the revocation, so that should not be an issue. But the issue would be is, first of all, whether we, want to not revoke the permit. And the second issue would be is whether we want to change the verbiage of blunt cigar pertaining to the recommendation of the city councilor.
I do have a question. Regardless, they're separate issues in terms of if we don't support the revocation, we would then go on to the next subject. Is that right?
Right, so if you guys are inclined to not revoke, you can, that's separate, and then whether you revoke or not, and then if you're not revoking, you can amend the permit at this time as well.
Doesn't mean we have to change the condition. We have the opportunity to if we wish to.
Director Roth has a question.
Yeah, I'm not participating in the deliberation because I was not present during the first part of it, but on the second part of it, what would be these are conventional conditions that are in probably convenience store permits across the city. Would it be best for us to, on an ad hoc basis in an individual case, change the condition, or is that something that should work its way through the system, starting with the building division?
I can speak to that. So I've talked a lot with the zoning administrator about this, and we're looking at revising it across the board, and depending on what you guys think about the condition today that was drafted, she's prepared to go forward with that as the standard condition on all future convenience stores.
So if we
Before
did-
this board, and then if they come up at Board of Adjustment as well.
So if we did change this condition verbiage, it would reflect across the board going forward?
Right, going forward, yes. And I have a slight tweak based on some discussion today with Myra and the proposed condition. And would you guys like me to read the condition again? I think Rich read it already, but I don't know if it helps to read it over again for you guys.
The current one or the
No,
one?
the proposed, the draft.
I was going to ask that same question I didn't want you to repeat it, but that would be great if you could.
Yeah, one sec. Okay, here we go. There shall be no sale of items that can be used or intended for use as drug paraphernalia as defined in Ordinance 68404, and that's been added, the reference to our existing ordinance where drug paraphernalia is defined, that wasn't in there before, or its successor ordinances, including but not limited to food scales, glass tubes, disposable lighters with pop-off tops, steel scrubbing pads and screens, rolling papers. I'm going to pause there for a second. Myra has suggested, based on our discussion today, that there are some rolling papers sold with tobacco and that those aren't as clearly intended for other use, so she recommends adding language to clarify the ones that are sold on their own. So I would suggest saying rolling papers sold without tobacco. That would be my recommendation. And then I'll continue. Ephedrine or pseudoephedrine, diet supplements, sleep aids, bath salts, or other substitutes for illegal drugs. In addition, there shall be no sale of cigars or cigarillos commonly used or adapted for use involving a controlled substance, examples of which include, but are not limited to, the following: Phillies, Dutch Masters, White Owl, Swisher Sweets, Splitterillos, Backwoods, Optimo, Garcia y Vega, and Game.
So basically, it takes, some of these, if you guys will note in the past, just basically said blunt cigars, and there was no example. Other ones we had seen said blunt cigars, and then had an example of White Owls and Swisher Sweets and so forth. I don't think, by any stretch of the imagination, that we ever want to get into a situation where we're trying to define every single item in detail and name that could be used for this particular use. I think the way you have to read this is It says, pretty much what it said before, but it gives clear-cut examples of some, but, are not limited to the following, so that a person who's a conditional use holder knows if it's one of these type that can be separated, it's not the thing they need to be selling. I mean, they obviously know that. And, it pretty much goes through here. And I think in the spirit of what we're trying to ask them to do is to not sell items that people can use to use with illegal substances. And so I think it's a much clearer definition of what we had before.
I think it's much clearer, and I'm not somebody that's into always delaying something or tabling something, but my question is, does a decision have to be made on the spot today at this hearing? And I know we've looked at this before, but now that we have something new to review, I think it needs a little more careful consideration. The reason why I'm saying that is, for years, I've seen these products sold at Huck's, at Quick Trips, at UGAS, all these places, if I'm correct, and it almost sounds like they'll be banned citywide at these facilities. And I know people that have smoked these for years harmlessly with no ill intent to put marijuana in them. Maybe I'm asleep at the wheel here, but it just seems if we ban these right here today,
Yeah, we're not touching that.
it just seems very foreign to me. Those are my thoughts. So I guess my request is just to review, maybe even just a week for the new policy, because I've seen these sold. I'm 49. I've seen them sold for years, and I can't picture them not being sold. It's just maybe a quick look at the reading of the new verbiage, and that's all respect to the city councilor's work on it as well, and Ms. Turner and whoever else was involved.
And that's, so I just want to make sure I understand. So you're thinking about tabling just the discussion, basically, of the new condition. We're not going to open the hearing back up.
No, correct.
Okay, just checking.
The former of what you said. I've just always, I don't smoke, but years ago I've had a Black and Mild, I've had a Swisher Sweet, so I know what they can be used for. I guess I'm just naive that I would never purchase them to use that, and I don't think a lot of other people in society would.
Mr. President and the board, let me say this as being the inspector that goes out to the different places that carry this stuff. Most of the problem that we're finding are not from the Quick Trip, the Gas U or whatever. The situations are in the local neighborhoods, in the smaller convenience stores, where people actually come out of the store, take it, and start doing what they're doing right outside of the store, which causes a problem in the neighborhood. I know myself personally, I would not want to pass up somebody that's trying to get their drug together and go into the store or come out of the store, because I don't know what you're going to do. You might try to rob me. I don't know. I just see what you're doing. So if that will help any from what I do and what I see, it's these neighborhood convenience stores and the persons that are going in and buying these different items and coming right out on the side of the store and doing what they do.
Yeah, I respect that. My comment to that would be, so if I gas up at UGAS tonight or Quick Trip, they are authorized to sell all these, and it's nothing, there's no violation with the city of St. Louis?
Well, I don't know if that's the case, because I think the way, and Bob might be able to speak to this a little more, but I think most convenience stores have to get a conditional use permit at least. And so I think even a Quick Trip might find this as a standard condition, but I don't know if that's accurate, Bob.
Well, typically we attach conditions as we see appropriate. And so, like Myra said, if it's a neighborhood store where there's been a history of problems, we'll attach extra conditions to make sure that those problems don't occur. I'm not sure we've attached such conditions to a Quick Trip because we don't anticipate those type of problems are going to be happening at a Quick Trip or a UGAS. So maybe that's a distinction there. Is a convenience store that's part of a gas station may be treated differently than a gas store, the corner convenience store in the neighborhood where these problems are occurring. But when it's a standard condition, typically then we attach it to everything. So I think we have to be careful how we attach these conditions. And
Well, my point is, like, it's a standard condition right now. So, like, but you make a good point that the gas stations convenience stores with gas are differently categorized, so they might not have the standard.
But if we were to still retain the ability, and not to become discriminatory, but if we could distinguish when we feel that condition is necessary and not apply it if we feel it's not that particular guest.
Well, I think that's always the case. I mean, the board has discretion for every permit to put whatever conditions they want on it.
So I think what I'm hearing is that it is a condition that may or may not be imposed on a conditional use holder. So maybe the example Director Hayes is giving, the condition wouldn't be imposed on it because of the neighborhood or the use of the business. But in a case where it is imposed, that what we're trying to do is to give a clearer definition of what a blunt cigar is. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes. And the thing is, I was a little concerned with that last sentence you had in that draft, that you've basically gone back to saying no blunts allowed.
I spoke with Mary about this, so she signed off on it, so I don't know what to say about that.
But we can follow up. But another thing to be aware of is a lot of these so-called problem convenience stores, if you look at the history of applications at that one address, you'll see a continual change of ownership. Almost any of these little mom-and-pop type convenience stores, you can see there's been 4 or 5 applications previously. It's almost like once a year they change ownership. Quick Trip doesn't do that. UGAS doesn't do that. It's a one-time thing. They get their occupancy permit, and it's good for who knows how long. So that's another way to distinguish these potential problem properties.
I appreciate those comments. I would say if this board had the discretion yesterday, today, and tomorrow moving forward, and in fact, it's not a blanket conditional use, and it is applied in cases where we have Ms. Turner has to keep coming back and we have to hear the same violations. If it can be used when it's a chronic, identifiable, documented problem convenience store, I think that's very fair to have it as a conditional use. So I just heard that blanketing the city, maybe my lack of knowledge of, and that's why I brought up the UGASs and the Quick Trips where anybody can go into any store and use it in the wrong way. I just didn't want a case where people are saying, why do we have this and not these folks? But the reason why you have it is because there's been problems and documented problems.
And very similar to every conditional use, there are different sets of conditions by the location of the business or the proposed holder. So, it seems to me like it could or couldn't be applied depending on, but what we're discussing is whether we want to do a clarification today or whether we would feel more comfortable with having zoning do their clarification on their own. So if there's no further discussion on this, what I'd like to ask for is, first of all, a motion concerning the revocation.
I have one. I want to make sure I'm hearing correctly that we're really looking at this conditional use change to impact the convenience stores and the confectionaries in neighborhoods versus the UGAS and, okay. All right, just want to make sure.
And I just had a question for President Bradley. So you guys will you're inclined to, I guess, either revoke or not revoke today and then just leave the condition alone and then they can work it out. So the revocation hearing will be resolved either way today, but just the condition issue will be left alone. Okay. I'm just trying to understand what you were saying.
Okay, so any further discussion? So I would like to ask for a motion concerning the revocation.
I make a motion for the revocation not to proceed and no revocation.
Second.
Okay, have a motion to deny the revocation in a second. Can you call the roll, please?
Director Scobie is excused. Director Rundy?
Aye.
Director Hayes?
Aye.
Director Ross?
Abstain.
Director Moore is excused. Director Gray
Aye.
and President Bradley.
Aye, not revoked. Now concerning the verbiage, do we need to vote on that?
No, because, I mean, that's, you don't have to even do that today. So that motion is fine. It's over with.
Does everyone feel okay that we allow the city council to continue to work with zoning with the proposed verbiage? How do we want to handle that?
I think that's fair, if that's fair. I mean, if that sounds reasonable to city councilor.
Right, so since this is not revoked, so since you guys aren't revoking it, what will happen is they have an amendment application pending. So, and that's correct now, so then you will just process the amendment application.
We actually held a hearing to change this condition, but we didn't pass a recommendation to this board pending the revocation hearing. So we're ready to send something to the board for their consideration. We could do that as soon as next week.
Yeah. So then I'll work, so yeah, basically I'll work with them to talk about the condition for blunt cigars.
So no further
Right,
action?
no action by you guys is needed.
Okay. Hearing number 8181, which is at 6321 West Florissant Convenience Store, Dynasty Discount. And so the conversation that, as we mentioned the last time, was we had an existing conditional use permit. It had violations. There was a new operator that the conditional use was not assigned to or applied for, if you will. We heard today from the zoning inspector that there are still violations of the existing conditional use, and there's been no effort to clarify the changeover of the conditional use from the previous owner to the new. So is there any discussion on that? All right, the question I had asked was if we revoke this conditional use, the new owner would be able to reapply for it upon starting up their business, and zoning affirmed that that was correct. So my recommendation would be that we revoke the conditional use.
Should I second that?
No, you have to make it.
I recommend that we revoke the conditional use.
Second.
Okay. Can you call the roll, please?
Director Scobie is excused. Director Rundy.
Aye.
Director Hayes.
Aye.
Director Roth.
Abstain. I wasn't present.
Director Moore is excused. Director Gray
Aye.
and President Bradley.
Aye, revoked. I'd like to turn your attention to our November 3rd meeting minutes that have been distributed. Just as a reminder, Director Roth, you were not at that meeting.
Right, I remember.
So are there any questions or comments on the minutes? Seeing none, I'll take a motion, please.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Can you call the roll, please?
Director Scobie is excused. Director Rundy.
Aye.
Director Hayes.
Aye.
Director Roth.
Abstain.
Director Moore is excused. Director Gray
Aye.
and President Bradley.
Aye, approved. Turn your attention to our November 10th meeting minutes from last week. Are there any questions or comments on that agenda? Those meeting minutes? Seeing none, can you call the roll, please?
Director Scobie is excused. Director Rundy.
Motion?
Need a motion, right?
I move to approve the minutes of November 10th.
Thank you.
Second.
I was there.
Yes, sir. Now can you call the roll, please? Thank you.
Director Scobie is excused. Director Rundy.
Aye.
Director Hayes.
Aye.
Director Roth.
Aye.
Director Moore is excused. Director Gray
Aye.
and President Bradley.
Aye, approved. Today's agenda, any questions or comments on the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Moved and
Previous
seconded.
roll.
And call for a previous roll. Is there any objection to use the previous roll? Seeing none, approved. Motion to adjourn, please.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.